Well, here I am. Have you missed me? Because I have missed you guys. I'm Erica Lukes, happy to be here on this snowy evening in Utah. Just kidding. I want to thank all of my friends. Clearly, I've not been practicing my production skills, so there you have it. But I just want to thank all of you for being here. Jim, it's so nice to see you in chat. I know Peter's listening. Mario, great to have you here. I want to give a shout out to my partner, Jack Brewer, who wrote this wonderful book, The Grays Have Been Framed. And I definitely would recommend you reading this if you want to learn anything about the exploitation in the UFO community. You can go to his blog, Jack Brewer blog. You can also go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org to check out the work that we're doing with our nonprofit. If you'd like to donate to help us with archiving or doing FOIA requests and the research that we're really putting our hearts and souls to, you can also go there to show your kindness and donate to help keep our nonprofit going. I want to also take a moment to thank the supporters of this show. And I have a Patreon that I have a few people that support the show go to donate for the show costs. Thank you to all of you who care about getting quality content out there, especially in a time when we're getting a lot of, complete nonsense in the UFO world. I want to first just start by saying there's a lot going on in Utah. And just when you think you haven't seen it at all, and I've lived here my whole life, well, you see more. There's been some groundbreaking news that has been coming to light. Lynn Packer is a journalist here. He's been working on a story about Sean Reyes and and Tim Ballard, the front person for Operation Underground Railroad, and some of the people that they are in league with, including, you can see in one of the videos that Lynn Packer posted, Brandon Fugel at a party with all of these players. Sean Reyes is Utah's Attorney General and has just been named in a lawsuit. He has also been reported to have intimidated witnesses that were coming forward about the implications of Tim Ballard sexually handling and abusing people in Operation Underground Railroad, an organization that was allegedly committed to child sex trafficking. And what they would do with this great organization is they would find people, wealthy donors, probably off the mailing list from the Mormon Church, and they would take these donors to South America and do like a live action role play where they were thinking that they were macho and going in and liberating children. And in all actuality, what they were doing is probably causing much more harm. More is coming to the surface. Anna Merlin did a story in Vice. She continues to cover that. Robert Gehrke from the Salt Lake Tribune has also done an incredible job, as has Adam Herbetz from Fox 13 News. So I want to give a shout out to all of them. You can also go to Expanding Frontiers Research as well to check out what we have done on Sean Reyes with relation to Skinwalker Ranch. And so here you have our illustrious Attorney General. And for almost a decade now, since he was appointed by Governor Herbert, he has been, it looks like, protecting people who are committing crime and then punishing people who are maybe not guilty of specific things that they are alleging. So it's going to be interesting to see how this unfolds. I wonder how much, since we know that these Reyes, Brandon Fugel is a donor of Reyes, some of these people, how their connections will play out in the long run. It has been alleged that the FBI is investigating, as I hope they are, because there are all sorts of scams going on in Utah, as we have also reported with Expanding Frontiers Research about SafeMoon and the cryptocurrency company that was promoted by Brandon Fugel and some of the arrests that have been made. So these are interesting developments, and I'm bringing all of these things up because you need to be aware of, when you're in this subject in the UFO world, that a lot of times what you're being told up front by specific people who appear to be the bringers of the keys to the kingdom, that what it is really a bill of garbage. And so you have to ask questions. And that's why, for me, over the years, as I've had associations with some of these people, I have done digging. I've watched who they associate with, business practices, all sorts of things that go on. And then Jack and I can go on behind the scenes to do grammar requests, do FOIA requests. We've done some groundbreaking research with Expanding Frontiers. I'm really proud of that. But anyway, I just want to say, you've got to really pay attention to what you are looking at and the people that are promoting their garbage. So on that happy note, Jeremy Vaeni. Jeremy, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. And I know
I
you just
promised to look up. I'm sorry. I was just advertising the show on Twitter. I was like, oh wait, yeah,
well, thank
right.
you. Look up, look down. So I just want to first of all say that I haven't done the show for a few weeks, and you were the first person that I thought of. I'm like, I just need to get Jeremy on the show because
Oh,
I just like what you have to say, and you have such a great sense of humor, and
oh,
you have a lot of the same
thank
ideas,
you.
that I do after both of us have experienced some things. And so I appreciate the fact that you talk out about some of these things to help us try to find a better way of exploring, the unknown instead of constantly being bombarded with grifters. So I appreciate that. And you're an author. You have your own show. You did a show with Jeff Ritzman, who I miss, and I liked Jeff. But you've been around a while, and now you're in Hawaii, and I'm jealous a little bit, a lot.
I'm an old geezer. Hey, is this a good sign or a bad sign? There's a stray cat just hanging out right outside the window here.
You know what? Let's call it a good sign.
Okay, good. It's just licking itself, which cats are prone to do. Hey,
That's really
everybody.
good.
That's that and other great words of wisdom are coming your way in the next few
Yes,
hours.
we have so much. This is going to be great. So anyway, and I'm looking in chat, and I just want to say, hey, Phil, Scott, Rodan, Tracy, Simon, Jim, like all of you guys, thank you. It's so nice. Michael, thank you so much for everything you do, Michael. I appreciate it, but it's just so nice to know that I can go away for a few weeks and then get back in here and see all of my friends. And I hope you're all doing well. But first of all, what's happening in your world?
Uh, you know, the holidays. I guess in terms of like UFO world and all of that fun stuff, there's a series that it'll either be on Vimeo or YouTube that I want to do that goes deeper. That sort of ufology grad school that goes deeper into like what alien abductions are and what they aren't and why the term is bogus and all this, and have it be like a sort of informal lecture series that I wanted to start in
Oh,
January, but for some reason we suddenly have like friends and family that just want to come here month after month, which never happens, and so I don't know that I'm actually going to get this thing even started by then. So I guess I'm on hold until further notice with that, and then there's nothing else going on. I just juggle. I juggle ducks and farm life. I do farm life stuff.
okay. That sounds really nice, though. I could get out of Salt Lake and deal with some farm life. I don't know. Whatever that means, nobody knows. But I could have a more productive conversation with a pig or a cow than you can with some of the people here in Utah. Whatever. I don't know.
Some
So I
people are pigs and cows, sure.
Yes, they are. So I just have to show you really quickly because on the introduction I was, going off about the Bling Bishop, which is there you go. That's our Utah Attorney General. Thanks to IMBD right there. He is so
Wow.
tough. Yep, I know. Be afraid, I think. And then we've got the alleged owner of Skinwalker Ranch there, and that was on an episode that they did. And so I clearly just very serious there. Acting 101. And then here's just another. Okay, this is a little screenshot from our Attorney General. I just need
Hmm.
to share these things because they're quite interesting. And if you're really bored, there's a great panel at one of the Comic Cons, perfect place for this with Skinwalker Ranch boys, and the Attorney General is hosting the panel. And there's some great nuggets in there. I've been going over that and doing a little digging into some of the alleged claims and backtracking by the Skinwalker Ranch crew. And then here is Tim Ballard. He is the man that is in a lot of hot water, who was involved in Operation Underground Railroad here, our nonprofit that has gone around and built people out of millions and millions of dollars, and in this child sex trafficking under that guise. And I think that's really, I just have to say, it's so incomprehensible that people would use something like that to make money off of people. And that kind of brings me to the UFO world, because we see in the UFO world, people are played because of their sympathies. They're used and abused because they are sympathetic and kind people. And so, what are your thoughts?
Well, in what way? Like when you say people are used and abused, what people are we talking about? The audience or?
So I think, people that are like the Skinwalker, people that believe in Skinwalker Ranch, people that believe in specific UFO cults, people that would get involved with Ramtha or, things like that. I mean, you've seen as well as I have people who have had genuine experiences, and they are looking to a community to try to find acceptance. And a lot of times those communities are very negative, and that's unfortunate. And people like Stephen Greer, as you've mentioned, let me just show this picture right here.
Take it down.
No, you have to look at this. I took that at a conference. Yes, yep, there you have it. But you've talked a lot about
Nice.
Stephen Greer, and some of the things that he's done. In fact, I was watching it today. I've watched it a few times, but you talk about Stephen Greer and some of the shenanigans he's pulled. So just go off on Stephen Greer for a minute.
Just go off on Stephen Greer. Well, I want to go back to the first thing, which is the audience, because I mean, I'm at the point where, yes, these people, of course, are taking advantage of people, and to the extent that they can victimize people for profit, they're going to, because that's, sociopaths think we're objects, right? The problem for me is that enough of this stuff has been around, cults and all this, cult thinking. Everyone's seen Oprah. You know what I mean? Like, we've got enough education to know. So at this point, it seems to me that it's probably the majority of the audience is just being fed what they want to hear. And I don't know that they're being victimized so much as they are willing participants in their own victimization.
Great point.
Which I don't like saying, because I don't say that in other contexts. Like in other contexts, victims are victims. But when it comes to ufology, and, I guess the only way I can not be that harsh is by way of Stephen Greer, in a way, which is that he, to me, is the epitome of a con artist. Like, he's got the look, the mannerisms, the whatever comes out of his mouth. I mean, he's either a pathological liar or not, and he's just lying. But either way, it ain't good. But either way, it's also completely obvious from the word go to me. But I've done some studying up on this, and it turns out that there are people in the world who cannot tell the difference. Like, the obvious thing to me isn't obvious to people, to, a certain portion of the public. And so I guess to that extent, to where I'm like just kicking myself, going, come on, what is wrong with you people? Don't you see this? Don't you see the used car salesman act? Don't you see the politician with the slick hair and the teeth and the whole thing? Like, why do we keep falling for these archetypal sleazeballs? Right. And the fact is, people are blind to it, apparently. So I guess I should have some sympathy to that extent. But I don't know. And Greer has been at this long enough in providing demonstrably false claims that how is he even still here anymore? I mean, it's funny to talk about him as a pathological liar. I don't know that he is. Again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm certainly not his psychologist. But we just saw George Santos get kicked out of Congress for, very similar behavior. And if Congress can get rid of one of their own, why is Greer still in ufology? This is the mystery to me. Because ufology is where you go when you claim to want truth. So this is what gets back to like the problem of the audience for me is that they're first lying to themselves. A lot of people who claim that they want the truth don't really care about the truth. They think they do. They've
Right.
deluded themselves into belief, but really they want to like express whatever anger and rage they have from their own personal baggage and whatever. And this is a way to do that. Or yell at politicians. Like it's venting. Like ufology today seems more about venting, which fits right in with the politics of the day, right? Which is like just about venting, and I have rage about something I was told to on TV. So I don't know that the audience is in it for the right reasons. I certainly know that a lot of the people on the stage aren't in it for the right reasons.
And that I really like your thoughts about that. I always am champion of the underdog to a fault. And at some point in time, like you say, people have to take their own responsibility for going down rabbit holes and not adhering to looking for facts. I mean, it's like we're not, the basic rules of investigating somebody's claim. It's like with this Tim Ballard that I keep mentioning from Operation Underground Railroad. I mean, he went around for a decade telling people that he was with the CIA and he was this operative. And well, no, that wasn't even true by a long shot. And you see this again and again in the UFO world. It's like somebody comes on there and they claim that they've had all of this military experience, and some have had some of that and some haven't. But these are all things that should be provable. They're all things that should be, put out there, and they're used as a kind of a sneaky way to up somebody's credibility when in all actuality they're really not credible.
Yeah, well, and see, this is great. You tackle the people on the stage part, and I'll tackle the audience, and together we'll isolate everybody. But I just with that, because I've been watching this docu-series on HBO. It might be called Love Mother God, which is about this cult around this woman who they ended up, I guess, mummifying. And I haven't gotten to that part yet. But one of the things one of the cultists said early on, which to me is like, bingo, was, and these are people who talk in terms of like New Age, very that specialty language of 5D. I won't go to a 3D hospital, ascension, all that stuff.
Oh my.
He said, like, this thing took off on the internet, and he said the internet to him is the same as dreaming. Like, you can sort of, it's got that same sense of reality to it. In other words, so he's admitting, like, online, I can create an avatar of myself and be sort of who I want to be. And everything is perception because you don't really know who's on the other end.
Right.
It's anonymous people and all that. And so in that sense, it's not much different than dreams. And I wonder if that isn't also translating to like UFO Twitter, or if the part of the reason things are getting worse in UFO land and not better, even since 2017 with like new eyeballs, because I had heard that before 2017. We need new, fresh faces to,
No,
fresh minds to look
we
at this,
don't.
and it's like not only is it the same old minds, it's also people claiming too much knowledge, people putting on airs, people playing a character, and treating each other, of course, in the way that you would in real life if you ever met each other, in terms of hostility and all that. But I just, I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of human problems going on for us to care so much about an alien other. Why aren't we dealing with ourselves first? Like, what fighting shape are
Right.
we actually in to meet another?
And
If
if
we're just
Jeremy
nuts.
Corbell is like leading the cause and he's the first one to
Yeah,
go up to
right.
the mothership, we're totally hosed. I mean,
I mean, well, here's another thing. As you say that, Jeremy Corbell. So Jeremy Corbell had said, I think he was talking about either Jacques Vallée or like those types of, trickster theory or interdimensional sort of trickstery stuff. Like he was saying, I saw him in an interview where he was saying like, he didn't understand that. Like that stuff doesn't resonate with him so much as like aliens doing technology, right? Aliens with technology coming here. And like he doesn't get that. And I think like this guy is supposed to be like sort of the ambassador and the narrator of this stuff for so many people, how long has he been in this that he doesn't understand Jacques Vallée or trickster theory or anything other than aliens? Like, if you've been in ufology for any amount of time and you still don't see or understand, comprehend just basic sort of, I don't know, archetypes, myths, any of the stuff that might apply from the humanities that has nothing to do with like science or technology, there's a problem because this stuff, as we know, is intricately linked with paranormal events, with all sorts of high strangenessy stuff. So you've got to basically just keep cutting that out and pretending that that doesn't exist to say it's aliens. And I feel like there are certain people, at least like his master, George Knapp, who have been in this forever, and they do understand this stuff. But because the public doesn't understand this stuff, someone like George Knapp, he just co-authored a book with a guy, I don't remember the other guy, but it's about, like in the interview that they were doing about that book, they were tiptoeing into, there's a lot of weird paranormal stuff associated with this, UFO, UAP phenomena that we just can't shake. And they tiptoe into it as if this is new information. And it's only new information for a low information interested public. You know what I mean? And who's keeping them low information? Well, that would be George Knapp and people like him, wouldn't it? Because he knows all about this stuff. You got to really act if you're George Knapp to sit there and be like, you know what? We just discovered there's a link between the paranormal and UFOs in 2023 so that you can write a book about it. You know what I mean? But we keep allowing them to do this, like over and over. They just recycle material, and we all, are supposed to have amnesia, like we've never learned anything about this subject all along, and keep reading it and going, oh, this is really good. You should look at this. It's just, the whole thing is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it is ridiculous, and I think the more I learn, and the more we're kind of seeing a ramping up of certain people on social media, which you mentioned 2017. I think there was definitely some. I think politics. I think what's going on in our political landscape has a lot to do with things. We know that Bigelow has been a fan of Trump for a long time. He invested in DeSantis. That went nowhere because DeSantis is a dud. So now we're going back to Trump. So I think we're going to see a lot of, I think that's going to be very evident in what's going on UFO Twitter, and this heightened rhetoric of we've got to storm. We're going to take out the people at the Pentagon. We're going to do, just all of this stuff to me is linked, unfortunately, with that, and people that say politics and UFOs don't have anything to do with each other. No, they shouldn't in a perfect world, but in this world they do, and people need to understand the lay of the land. But I will say that, I don't know if for you, but for me, when I watched the, Hunt for the Skinwalker, the best scene I've ever seen in my life was the campfire scene and the eye to eye with Jeremy Corbell's crotch. I mean, bro sipping a beer. Hey, my little English rock star, let's sit by the campfire and talk about absolutely nothing. But here's, you got it going on.
I haven't seen any movie version of the Skinwalker Ranch. I've only seen part of season 1 of the TV show, and it was like watching paint dry. And just from watching that TV show, is that the Hunt for the Skinwalker, the TV show? Is that what we're talking about?
That is The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay, so just in watching that, anything that I thought might be going on from having read, again, the George Knapp and whoever book, I think it was just George Knapp, from years ago, which I found intriguing because at that point in my life, I trusted him and ufologists and thought, oh, why would they be lying to us? And so I found it intriguing. But then when you see the show, and presumably the movie, and you see that there is absolutely nothing going on, and you see the dopes in charge of nothing going on, I don't understand. Again, this is the disconnect where, am I watching the same thing that the audience is, where they're fascinated and this thing gets greenlit for another season? Like, are we watching the same thing? Why is Bigelow even a factor, even a name still in ufology, if this is what he's attached to, is this piece of property, which the most, paranormal thing is that if you kick the dirt, you're going to raise the radiation level because the dirt's irradiated. Like to me, that's more fascinating than anything else. Is like, oh, you're walking around on a radiation blast zone, huh? Why does everyone get cancer? That's weird.
Yes, exactly. That is kind of strange, isn't it? But I mean, it's fascinating to watch the way this story. I mean, it's been the same kind of narrative for forever. The smoking dogs, the shape shifting werewolves. I mean, in fact, I was recently on a camping adventure and had a little moment with my little dog there.
Triumph.
That should have been Triumph, but no, that was my the smoking dog that I saw along with. I've got to just show you this. My little friend, the werewolf, Wolfie.
Hmm.
We were having this is probably the most real evidence of anything going on anywhere
Now,
that
did did
anybody's ever seen.
Wolfie unwind a spool of tape from a camera in a tree, like piece by piece, and set it down on the ground meticulously, like it has OCD, or no?
No,
Oh, okay.
no,
That must be
no,
other creatures at Skinwalker. Do you remember that? Where they were like,
no.
oh, yeah, there was like a camera or something that was set up and it was taped somewhere, and something came along and
Oh
somehow
God,
was able to unwind the sticky
oh
tape. It's
Lord.
like, yeah.
I think John Alexander was the one who might have said that it was the all this high great equipment. It was like a clown show there.
But here, I want to ask you a question, Erica. Do
Oh
you
Lord.
think that there's anything to this? Because, like, when I look at it, I'm an experiencer of a host of crap. And so when I think of high strangeness, I don't think of cookie cutter alien abductions or even seeing a UFO. I think of like really strange stuff. Do you think of anything at all? Or do you, like, so in other words, I'm in this because I actually care about discerning the crap from the real because I know that the real is real and there's a signal in the noise. Do you share that, or are you like, no, this is all garbage and it's all gonna go?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I will, say that I've had experiences that I can't explain. And so, that's one of the reasons I've been fascinated with this subject my whole life. I but as I began to become a public person on the subject or getting involved with MUFON or different things, I began to see that there was something that was really wrong. People were mining data and there was never, nothing was going to be done with that. I mean, they certainly weren't looking for UFOs. Who knows what else they did with the data? But there were so many questions. And then my foray into Skinwalker Ranch and some of these really nasty people, it really jaded me a lot. Also, it's been interesting to have the archive here that I do to go, I mean, it's absolutely incredible. Do I believe that, you know, Roswell was true? No, I don't. I mean, do I believe that any sort of things, what we've heard in the UFO sense all along this narrative, I don't believe any of these stories are real. I believe my experience is something I can't explain. And I'm sure that other people have experiences that I can't explain as well. But it's not what we've been told. And I think the thing that's really amazing is the people who are supposed to be the purveyors of love and light and of self-realization of connecting to higher beings on other planets. These are the people that are keeping everybody down. And I think that's the thing that just is so infuriating to me about it, and that's why I continue to speak out about it, even if I have to take a month off. But I mean, there is this should be an empowering experience. We're looking to the unknown. We're trying to learn more about ourselves, and when you have people that are grifting and creating a negative environment like on UFO Twitter, or you've got the Elizondos or people like that, Corbell's Naps, it really is a disservice to all of us. And I hope that more people will start to come out and call people, out on their just absolutely, I mean, just lies, because that's what
Yeah.
will make, we've got to get through this we've got to see what it is, that's in our way. We have to name it. We have to shine a light on it. And we have to get that out of the equation and then get back to having fun and having, this really fun process of learning about ourselves.
Well, see, that's interesting. So, the process of learning about ourselves, because people want this to be a social phenomenon, right? We want like the thing to land. We want there to be aliens, and they're either right part of the Galactic Federation of Light, or they're evil abductors that we can do something about if we just rally behind, I don't know what, Will Smith with a Mac computer. I don't know how it works. But uh, the question to me is, I mean, I know the answer from my own life and other experiencers I've talked to, but for the public at large, there should be a question here, which is a scary one because of the implications if it goes the other way. Is this actually a phenomenon for society to tackle, or is it individual? Is it personal? And it's scary to say that because if it's personal, then you get into, uh-oh, am I crazy? Are these people just delusional? And if not, then we're into, okay, then there's a third thing going on here, right? That's like both personal and transpersonal. It's personal, like there's some other intelligence interacting with us in a personalized way that is not just us deluding ourselves, but also isn't applicable to like scientific observation or the pontifications of people on the stage. Like none of that stuff applies, which means we really have to start over with how we even think about this thing in a way that's probably less palatable than like, oh, it's aliens. You know what I mean? Like it would actually take some thought to get to that. Then, because one pat answer is, oh, it's just aliens. The other pat answer is you're misidentifying things or crazy or lying. And if there's another path here that we're missing, then I don't know. I just feel like you're getting to it when you say like, right, the link between working on ourselves and this, or between anything really. Like, isn't it weird that if you take ayahuasca or a mushroom or a whatever, that some sort of entity, seemingly not you but inside of you somehow at the moment, comes to you and tells you got to work on your psychological baggage? Like, isn't it weird that aliens come from another planet or an interdimensional whatever wormhole to tell you to work on your baggage? Like, you know what I mean? Like, whoever it is, and even if these are projections of ourselves, maybe it's time to heed the call of the compartmentalized, splintered psychology, if that's the case, and like work on ourselves, because just concentrating on that alien other isn't saving the planet. There is no like space savior that's going to come and rescue us from what we're doing. So maybe it's time to like reassess what we're doing. And maybe in doing that, maybe in understanding ourselves, a lot of the questions about this other will clear up instead of trying to answer the other with our own false assumptions.
Well, and and I'm thinking of the other, according to some of these whoever are little puppet masters, the in the the Nordics. I saw the Nordics that came up in chat, which makes me smile. But at the end of the day, though, that is a very disturbing. Here we've got these benevolent space brothers that are here, blonde, blue-eyed. They are perfect. We're talking about. I mean, there's so many ways that I look at the UFO world and look at what's been inserted into the narrative historically. I think this is like so about anything other than self-exploration or love and light. And I know that you talk about Kundalini a lot and different things like that. And it is interesting, in yoga and in that meditation and that whole realm, again, you get caught up with cult leaders and people that are trying to use the New Age movement or self-exploration for exploitation.
Yeah, well, that's the American way. I mean, if just plug into YouTube search engine Kundalini and see how many people in their 20s and early 30s have it all figured out, and they all have Patreons, I'm sure, or whatever it is that the kids use these days to gather the coin. It's no coincidence.
Yeah, it really isn't. And I want to go back to, we were talking about the 2017 thing, and we're talking about how all of a sudden, you had a whole new host of people that, oh my gosh, here's this new podcaster here, and here's this person here. And there's still, some of these people are still out there banging away. And I really feel through some of the research that I've done that this isn't a coincidence that all these people appeared at the same time. I think that these people are paid for, and you go back to looking at George Knapp and his involvement with Altamira, which was a company, communications company, that paid Knapp to go and create dossiers on people that were doing nuclear protesting, that were protesting Yucca Mountain, and also to create a social media presence to harass people, intimidate them enough that they weren't going to be speaking out against the nuclear, about nuclear stuff going on at Yucca. And so I fully can see, especially now, how easy it is to have a marketing company. You've got a name, you've got Skinwalker Ranch, you've got something that there's money behind, and you can hire different firms to create an online presence, and that can be pretty lucrative. And I think that's something that we don't give enough credence to in the UFO world and on UFO Twitter. Like, who are these people that are pushing specific narratives?
Yeah, well, I'm in a the photo of the politician with the Skinwalker Ranch owner is like, okay, so when the TV show and all that stuff is done, do they want to turn this into Roswell? Is that what it is? Do they want to have a tourist trap? Uh, Probably, right? Yeah, there's a lot of different ways to make money in this, and I always say, because now and then you get accused of like, oh, you're an author, you're writing a book, so this is all about making money for you. And then I have to say, no, nobody really makes money in this. And what that really is like 99% of the people don't make money in this, but there are the upper echelon who get the stage time, who control sort of the cottage industry, and they're making, the Greers of the world, or don't have to work again if they don't want.
That's
So
comforting. In that case, I do not want to go to that emergency room. And you can't get
right,
past
yeah.
my big
Yeah, you don't want that
bicep.
care. Trust me.
Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, it is, and that reminds me, we've been doing some digging on the conference that goes on, Phenomicon, up here in Utah, which is out in the middle of freaking nowhere. And so, bless all the people that want to go hang out in Vernal. But some of the speakers' fees, I mean, these guys are making 5 grand plus, a couple grand for, their little amenities and different things. And it's just like, yeah, that's a pretty good
And what
gig.
do they have to say? Again, this gets back to like the audience has to be primarily obsessed, right? Like to go and listen to these guys speak over and over and over again, saying the same things over and over and over again, and all validating each other, and everybody's got to get along, or else, you're going to not be invited back. So you told the line of whatever the several narratives are. Why would you want, like, what about that repetition of, like, usually garbage presented as straightforward fact in a slideshow or something? What about that boring presentation and delivery is of nonsense is like, you're like, yeah, I got to get a ticket to this over and over and over again.
Well, I
Somebody
think,
needs to explain this to me.
I mean, there's, first of all, not a lot of nightlife in Vernal. So maybe that could be, part of it. I definitely don't think, by looking at pictures of the crowds, that the crowds are as big as they claim. Huh, wonder who else does that. But, so people are making money, and they're utilizing, you know, state funding, and it's pretty interesting. So there's definitely a little cash cow there for a handful of people. And that's unfortunate, because there are, I know in the Uinta Basin, they're raising the tax rates, and the average person is really going to be affected by this. But everybody involved with the Phenomicon, that conference, is certainly making off pretty nicely. So,
Hmm.
And I want to see. It's nice to see you, Jasmine. It's been a while, and she's just saying that there's nothing wrong if someone earns money discussing the topic, as long as they aren't misleading, lying, convincing, or conniving, etc. Corbell, Knapp, Elizondo, Gersh, Lazar, all liars, and that is absolutely true. And you as an author should make money when you've taken your time to write a book that is, you're not conning people. Me, as a researcher, as somebody who has a nonprofit, who is doing research, who is spending money doing FOIA requests, um, doing, we put a lot of money into the archive, preserving history. I mean, of course, it would be lovely if we could have get at least break even. That would be wonderful. But unfortunately, the people on the speaking circuit, which are just the same old, it's like, let's reanimate this person, push them on stage, and then we're going
Right.
to hear the same old tired story that, we've heard, and the crowd goes crazy. And, but it'll be interesting to see what happens in that regard now that we've got Grush and a whole
Well,
new group.
I guess on the happy side, maybe, or the positive side, it is also true that while people are paying attention to the Grushes of the world and the sort of politicsy aspect of this, that there are people like Jeff Kripal, and Jacques Vallée and others who are influencing, or trying to anyway, who are giving speeches that go unnoticed in UFO world somehow, to the likes of, Stanford, Harvard, Yale, to physicists, to the faculty there, and they give these speeches and they get zero publicity for it from what I see. And so there is like a group of like knowledgeable and open-minded people. I'm hedging here because I'm thinking, like, is Jacques Vallée still that? But I guess in his own way, I have problems with Jacques nowadays. But when it comes to just like the pure theorizing stuff, I don't. It's good to see him there, I guess. So, like, where's the championing of that? Like, they're actually influencing the influencers, hopefully, of universities, which is where the students come from, and the people, and changing their
And that's so
minds, right?
scary. That's really scary when it comes to, like, Gary Nolan, and the Soul Foundation. I don't want that guy influencing me. Ugh. I
Gary
mean,
Nolan, is he
Gary
one
isn't
of them?
Gary Nolan. What is Nolan? Oh my
Yeah, yeah,
God.
but is he a speaker?
Yeah,
Like I'm talking about? Oh, is he? Oh, okay. Well, I
yeah.
guess you take your bad with your good.
Clearly, but even Jacques Vallée, as much as I held him in high esteem for so many years, like, I question his narrative because, well, I mean, the recent Trinity debacle, but
Right.
then you've also got the fact that he's been hanging around this same group of clowns for decades. He's, and so that's a red flag to me. It's like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can't endorse his later work, but I enjoy some of his early work. I don't know what to do with him anymore. I don't know what to do with a guy who is a scientist who can present meta metals to a UFO conference that he hasn't really even looked at, as though this is something from aliens, or can write a book with someone who promotes Billy Meyer cult fraud, which is Paula Harris, and about a Trinity case that nobody believes is true from the word go. I don't know what he's doing. I would love to talk to him about it, and I hope the answer is like, well, I'm more old and feeble than anyone understands, and I don't know what I'm doing anymore. Like, that's the best I can hope for at this point, is like some sort of dementia or something. But I got a feeling there's probably something more going on than that. But in terms of just like his actual understanding that, early on, that, wait a minute, doesn't indicate aliens from another planet. We don't know what's really going on here, and then making the link back to mythology even, and all that stuff. I think that's all still good. I just think what he's doing now is like, wow, Jacques, you've really sold out. Something. I don't know what.
Yeah, it is
Unless you're doing a
interesting.
psyop for somebody, like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, it is interesting, and I do, I have enjoyed reading, all of his work and things over the years. But again, I just go back to the fact that it's like I mean, all of his donations, his archive, his files they've got like what, a 10-year restriction, so you can't see them until after he dies, which I
Oh,
find very suspect. And I just think that, again, if you're part of a group that has been promoting mistruths your entire career, then what is that? That just really strikes me the wrong way. That rubs me the wrong
what's the
way.
group that he's been a part of that's promoting mistruths?
Bigelow and Friends.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, and actually, and on that note, like, so Jeff Ritzman and I interviewed him on Paratopia, and he said to us, we were talking about He said that he was trying to create his own sort of like Skinwalker Ranch on his own. Like, is it possible to create a paranormal situation anywhere? And what he sort of came to is like you could triangulate any area and find that it's a paranormal hotspot just by talking to people, because people have strange experiences. Like pretty much any area you can just put a triangle on and say it's a paranormal hotspot. And that made sense to me. So if that's true, then why are you still affiliated with Skinwalker Ranch as though that is some extra special place when what you're admitting is it's absolutely not? I don't know. I never asked that part. I didn't think about that part at the time, but if I ever interview him again,
Yeah, no, I
these
think
are we're gonna check these off and see how far we can get before he hangs up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's these. Yeah, I mean, and that's he probably will, but I mean, those are questions to ask because it's. I mean, it decades we've had to deal with this stuff, and it's the
The thing
same. It's
is,
like,
don't you think there's an easy answer to Bigelow, which is he's a billionaire and he will give Jacques money to do research, and so Jacques
I
will
don't
be able
really
to
think
have
they've done
money.
research. I really don't think they've done research. I think this is like um, I don't think they've done research. At least from what was able to glean, there was no research that was done at Skinwalker Ranch. If you considering, that from what Eric Davis said, which is questionable, I totally get, but and from other people that I had interviewed, the Bigelow would not let anybody take any good equipment out onto the ranch.
Hmm.
And so basically it was just, some dump of a place, and they had a couple, drunk security guards that would go around in their ghillie suits and do whatever, but there was never any real study. And if there really was, and it was the place that they claimed to be, you can bet it wouldn't have been sold to some, bat boy on his little helicopter. You know what I mean? It's like none of that
Hmm.
makes sense. None of it makes sense. And I sent you an interview of Knapp and Kelleher, and I can't remember the host of that interview, but they were talking about, oh well, we had some NVGs, and there were five of us, and or five of them, and they were looking at this light, on the hill, and then this creature came out, and it's just like, what? Did you actually just say you were wearing night vision and you were looking at a light and you're a scientist?
Right. And I
Like,
think that
what
was the
the
interview that
frick?
I was referencing when I said they were talking about the paranormal, tiptoeing into it, the paranormal aspects of UFOs as though this is a revelation and new information, and that can be found in their book. I think it was Colm
Hmm.
Kelleher, right? Is
Hmm.
Did he
Hmm.
just write a book with George Knapp?
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah, so that's the one. So yeah, yeah, no, you're right. And again, like that's another example of it. Of like we're supposed to, and apparently we do, get in as soon as we hear the buzzwords we like, the trigger words that we love, we get complete amnesia about the fact that wait, you're a scientist and you're telling me you saw light through night vision and that's supposed to be spectacular. You've been in this
It's not good for
for
your equipment.
decades and you've never heard, and we know that you've heard of the paranormal connection. In fact, George Knapp, you just wrote you'd written the book on Skinwalker about paranormal stuff happening. So this is a revelation now that we have to sort of giggle our way and tiptoe into with the interviewer of, we're going to break this to you, public. Yeah, no, it is completely Groundhog Day when it comes to ufology in all ways. And I don't know what the antidote is to that, except for people to want better, but I don't know that they know that there is better if they're only paying attention to this. So it's the snake eats its tail, I guess. I don't know.
I guess the one comforting thing is I have friends that are not involved in this. Most of my friends, and they, for a couple of times, just to humor me, I think they watched the uh, Skinwalker Ranch show, and they were just like, "Okay, what? Like, are you kidding me? This is just really boring, and there's nothing of merit here." And so, luckily, a majority of the people on the planet actually understand it's really hokey. It's just like the whatever that series was where they were digging for, oh my gosh, what was that? A bunch of old white guys out digging for the
It could
something,
be anything.
digging. I mean, but now we're shooting lasers. We're flying some drones, and it's like, so luckily most people don't buy into any of this. So thank the Lord.
I guess that's good. But eventually these people are
Oak
gonna
Island, yeah.
tiptoe their way toward experiencers, right? They're gonna get off the UAP. And they're gonna come up with some other militarized term for, abductees or experiencers or whatever. The military will give us some sort of acronym, that'll sound fabulous coming out of Grush's mouth, and and everyone will repeat it because they'll feel like they're in the know and they're smart, and it'll go up there with UAP and biologics, my other favorite. And then what? Like, because that will be even more offensive to me because I used to host a show called The Experience, which was talking to experiencers, and the narrative is plainly not, of little alien space doctors coming and doing whatever, is not true. Like, that just is an artifact of hypnosis and narrative building from, so-called researchers. And so if this gets taken over again, or if it gets recontextualized and regurgitated in a new way, it's just going to be completely offensive because it's going to mean that you have to ignore actual people's testimony of their own lives to tell the public what's happening to them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that's coming, right? Like, that's next because they're going to run out of material with, like, after the Tic Tac UFO. It's like, okay,
Oh, well,
we
I
need to
dare
move
say.
on here. We need to move on to the Greys who are coming into bedrooms at night and stuff like that.
David
So what do
Jacobs.
you, David Jacobs and all that. I mean, so what do you think plays out there? Like, when you think about the way that things have changed from 2017 with just like the topic of UFOs and how that's been co-opted by the military and militaristic language and all that, what do you think happens with abductions and where do you think that goes? I'm just curious if you've thought about that.
I don't know, and I've got to ask you this because I think this is very interesting. Has it been co-opted by the military, or has it been used by specific people with a political motivation in an attempt to steer emotion in people and push conspiracies like QAnon and things like that to get people to vote a certain way? I mean, I think that I think that this, the whole conspiracy Bigelow crowd, Jeremy Corbell, I think that these people are doing things very strategically. And that's, I don't think
I
it's in
think
the
it's
best
both.
democracy. But yeah, absolutely.
No, I think you're right about that. But I will add to that. I also think it is in part about perpetual military funding for a perpetual invisible enemy, which apparently they don't need because, like, there are still wars in the world. There are still people who want to like fight in the world. So we could have just like real enemies. But I think like there was this thing of, because when we saw the UFO going in and out of the water from the Navy vessel, right? Shortly thereafter, the Pentagon tapped Valkyrie Systems, I think it was called, to create, just coincidentally, to create a drone that could go in and out of the water, a submersible drone, and they wanted to build a drone mothership that would, sort of like a submarine, although they didn't call it that. They wanted to invent this thing. So either that footage indicates, look, we've already got this, and they're just trying to like tell everyone, hey, we've got this, or it really is about like, you see that footage there? We need something to defend against that. I'm not saying that's aliens. I'm saying we don't know where it's from. It could be China. It could be Russia. It could be Mars. We don't know. But we need to invent that. And so perpetual money for projects like that. I mean, is that also a possibility? Because that seems like too much of a coincidence for my liking. I
Right. I
feel
mean,
like somebody saw QAnon. Somebody saw how QAnon, like, you didn't even have to have internal logic to the QAnon story for it to take off. You didn't have to have an iota of internal logic for it. It could just be silliness that people all gravitated toward and put their own stink on, and that was good enough for people. And if that's where society is, or like 30 to 40% of society is at, then of course the military is going to want to, like, and everyone else, advertisers, whoever, corporations, like greedy, cynical people, are going to want to swoop in on our completely awful, stupid mentality of, perception is reality, and shape that perception into their reality. You know what I mean? And make money off
absolutely.
it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Cambridge Analytica. I mean, it just, yeah, the data mining is very good for business if you wanted to sell something, and so it is. It's curious. I don't know what I don't know. But You did a video too, not to jump around, but I will because I do. That's the way I roll. But you did a video about Elon Musk, and so just talk a little bit about that because obviously he's been going off the deep end lately, and or maybe always. But just tell us a little bit about what you were talking about.
Uh, okay, so I have this little fun side project or something called He's So Vaeni, which is a YouTube show. Just talking about anything from ufology to consciousness and spirituality and all that. It's a reaction, it's a video reaction show. And so I did a reaction to Elon Musk talking to Lex Friedman about consciousness, and it was in the context of, is AI conscious? And, the first question is, as sort of we're talking about Bigelow and stuff, is like, why are we talking to a billionaire about anything? Like, his whole shtick in life is, I make money and I keep you from money. That's it. That's Elon Musk's whole function. He's not a mystic. He's not an
Thank
engineer.
the
He's
Lord.
not an AI developer. He's not a philosopher. He's not anything.
That's
He's a guy who makes money. But we worship guys who make money. So we ask them things like, hey, what do you think about consciousness? And of course, he, like so many people, think consciousness comes from meat. The consciousness comes from the body, and that's it. And that AI is going to be alive real soon and outthink us in every way and take us over. And he seems oddly, suspiciously okay with that. But I don't know why we're asking soul dead people about soul. It just seems antithetical to the intention of the question, I guess. Was there something specific you wanted me to say
no.
about that?
I was just laugh. I just laughed when I watched that because he just. Why are we asking these people these deep thoughts? And then I think about like Eric Weinstein and some of these conversations that they have with not Lex Friedman, but there are a couple other big podcasters, whatever, vloggers, whatever they are, that have these deep thoughts with some of these people, and you just think, Lord, like
This
where,
is
like
what passes for
no,
depth. And if you say that out loud, then they're like, oh, why are you so arrogant? And it's like, no, it really is. We're living in idiocracy. Like, you're so dumb, you don't know you're dumb. I can't stand it anymore. You're asking a guy whose entire thing is like, here's a Cybertruck. It is apocalypse proof. You can throw a baseball out the window and it will not shatter. And it's like, that's the guy you're asking, like, what's consciousness? Come on. Come on, man. Don't make me go Joe Biden.
it's a little awkward. I mean, there's no question about it, but. And at some point in time, I'll look back and just laugh. Well, I do actually. Who am I kidding? I just sit back and laugh at some of this that you see. You just think, yep, this is where we are. Gotta love YouTube for some of these things and Twitter. And I don't know. I don't know.
I would like to have a Twitter conversation at the dinner table, like Thanksgiving or whatever the holidays are that anyone celebrates, and you get around with the family. Just try having a conversation the way you do on Twitter, like in the same way that you do on Twitter with your family and friends, up close and personal. It just doesn't quite work out the same. And yet we're oddly okay with that, like living these dual lives, right? it's just weird. It's weird that like maybe it's not weird if you're younger and you were born into internet culture, but for those of us who remember a time before, it's odd. It's oddly we're oddly making ourselves schizophrenic, right? And then asking each other questions about life, the universe, and everything, which we're all very ill-equipped to answer. Instead of like just being silent for a moment to see if anything comes. You know what I mean? Like nobody, the lost art of just sitting silently. It's been co-opted by people who sell you silence.
Yes, in fact, I keep thinking, am I going to go off Twitter because I just don't even. It's at some point in time, it's not even worth it.
Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes, you will.
Thoughts?
I've seen your future.
Thank you. Can you tell me other things?
Yeah.
I really need to know.
Not many, but there are others I can tell you.
I have a very special Ouija board I could get out. That thing is seen. If that thing had a black box recorder on it, you'd, oh god, that could be special.
Did you use the Ouija board when you were, well, last week? I don't know, younger?
Well, I've oh, I've seen things. I've had people that were involved at a certain place use the Ouija board, which in and of itself should be on the next Comedy Network special. But yeah, it's got some history. Good times.
Very
I don't know.
nice.
I don't know. What do you think about the Ouija board?
I just did a Ouija board episode, so every now and then I host Dreamland, at least for now. Once a month I host Dreamland with Whitley Strieber. And I just had on a friend from high school. We had some odd Ouija board experiences. And so my feeling is I don't know. I'm not satisfied to say it's all garbage. And I'll just give you the thumbnail of why that is. Because we got sucked into this sort of, I guess this was the internet before the internet, right? The Ouija board. And we got sucked into this stupid narrative with an alleged spirit. And all of that can be easily like debunked. It's just kids, whatever. But one fine day, I decided to play with it on my own, which you're not supposed to do. And I could feel heat rising from the board. And I turned on or had on stereo speakers that suddenly became very crackly, and I got scared. And so I decided I would call up my friend who is a psychic. Her family's way into this, let's put it that way. So they know what to do. They know how to use this thing properly. So I'm like, okay, maybe they'll clear the board. I'm like 15 years old, by the way, at this point. And so I call my friend Travis to give me a ride because I have no car. And I get this, I must have dialed a wrong number. I get this suspicious answering machine, which is a multi-toned, sounds like the devil from the Exorcist movie. We're not here, leave a message. And there's like angels and harp music playing in the background.
Oh, Lordy.
So that scared the crap out of me. And I threw the phone down and ran out of the house and then realized I still had no way to get rid of this thing. So I tiptoed back into the house and I called another friend who I got through to and picked me up, brought me there. And so this woman, who's our friend's older sister, first of all, she had a note from her husband who didn't believe any of this stuff. He had no time for this crap. But the note was, hey, can you please stop playing with that board because the cats are going crazy. And in fact, the cats were going crazy while I was there. It was like visibly true. Nevertheless, she called up her dead Uncle Bobby to the board. Well, first, she got on the board with whatever this was, and it claimed to be Satan. And Satan was moving real fast around the board. And I am, even though I'm scared, and even though I did this, I'm still like a skeptical, cynical, jokey moron or whatever. And so I say, okay, yeah, if you're Satan, prove it.
Oh,
and
Lord.
literally,
I'm not doing that
on
with you.
cue, on cue to saying, prove it, the answering machine in the next room starts clicking. There are two candle holders, lit candles. One of them snaps in half, breaks in half, and the radio goes on in a bedroom. And so she calls her. Now I start crying because at this point I think I'm going to hell. Like this, like I'm going to die. So she calls her Uncle Bobby to the board and says, Uncle Bobby, can you get rid of this thing? So Uncle Bobby comes and gets rid of Satan somehow. And she says, Uncle Bobby, since the radio's still on, can you change the dial to music or something? And through the static, Good Day Sunshine from the Beatles starts playing.
Oh,
So I have no way to explain that other than what I just told you. Like there's no, because even if you say like there was an air bubble in the glass of the candle holder, you can't tell me that the timing coincidence is just a coincidence. You know what I mean? Like I say a thing, boom, boom, boom. These things happen in the real world. I don't know how you explain that. So there's that. But there's another fun part to this, which is, and I don't remember, neither of us could remember why. But at some point, Uncle Bobby had told all of us, there was a whole group of us, that there was going to be a week where we're all tested. And I can't remember why we would be tested, but it probably doesn't matter because it's a Ouija board. But there's going to be a week where like something was going to happen at night. And we all experienced weird things. And one of the weird things that I experienced is the quote unquote abduction that I put in my first book, which was something walking into my bedroom. It's 3:30 in the morning. I sit up in bed. I see this shadowy being with a long, like, pointy thing in its left hand, and I think sword. If you read the literature now, you'd be like, oh, it's a long needle. But I was 15, and I thought, oh, it's got a sword. So I watched this shadow being walk into my room. I heard my door open. It makes this sort of specific sound. And it's babbling at me. Like I can not like psychically, like I can see its head moving as it's talking in hyper gibberish. And I'm sitting up watching this, and I say out loud, Ma, what are you doing? Go back to sleep. And I immediately think, this isn't your mother. You know what this is. And I'm a flight guy when it comes to fight or flight. So I like pulled the sheets over my head, and that was it for me. And that's all I remember. And of course, later I asked my mom, did you come into my room? No. I had always associated that, even then, with alien abduction. What I didn't know, and so I would edit it. When I would tell the story, I would edit out the Ouija board week of whatever part, because I thought that was too weird, right? Like, how much can be true? And so I would edit that part out and just talk about the alien abduction part. And that's a wrong move, because again, experiencers have a tendency to have all sorts of high strangeness crap happen, and weird coincidences and synchronicities happening at once that negate. It's sort of like the experience is self-negating, so that the outside world won't believe you, but you know it's true. And therefore, it's for you to work out, what does that mean that it's true? Because I don't believe it's alien abductions anymore in my old age, but what is it? And so you work out that what is it. And you see this time and again with even just UFO reports, where even if it's a MUFON investigator, you see this on TV sometimes, where people make their report and then they say, well, did anything else happen? And no. And then they get them alone, and it's like, well, okay, I'm going to tell you this, but you're going to think I'm crazy. And there's always this part, like even in the crazy scenario of seeing this thing, that's crazier than that they don't want to tell you about unless they're sort of poked and prodded a bit. And I find that to be true from my own interviews with other experiencers. Is like you have to do the work of getting them to admit all of what the experience was, because even in the context of a crazy experience, there's something else that draws attention to just how crazy this is and how like sort of not the surface narrative you want it to be is. So anyway, that's my Ouija board story.
I love it. I've got some Ouija board stories, but they get better by the year. But what do you like as far as like the power of suggestion? Like what do you get in a situation and, you're coming into a dark room and you're going into a seance and you're going to a certain ranch, or you're entering some, like Area 51, and you've got all of these powerful suggestions that you've been given, over the years. Like how much does that play into an experience?
Quite a bit. Like, I think this is where I get into trouble through like trying to be discerning, but myself having these outrageous experiences, which is like you can always come back at me and sort of be valid about it and saying like, well, who are you to judge? You've had these experiences, right? But I still am judgy and will say that like I think all of this stuff is like you've got to eliminate the psychological. Like 99% of it probably is psychological. But I would also ask, like, yeah, suggestibility is a factor and all these things are a factor, but there's another factor, which is who's there, who's with you doing this. Because if somebody who's an experiencer is there, could there also be, like, would this Ouija board have worked if not for, I don't know, me and a psychic being a part of the group? You know what I mean? Like, whatever's going on with me, farting around with me, and this psychic who's got, like, psychic powers, supposedly, right? Like, and I'm not saying that you have to believe anything about me or her. I'm just saying, put in your own psychic and your own experiencer. Insert experiencer here. If you've got one in the group, are you going to experience something that you wouldn't without them? I guess is the question.
Right. God, Tim Ballard should have gotten a Ouija board. Why didn't he get a Ouija board? He got a psychic. Like what?
But here's the problem: is like what do we do about like there's no standards even for what I'm telling you. There's no standard for like unless you're a psychologist who's going to say, well, no, Jer, you're delusional. There's no outside of that. There's no standard. I could be lying to you, and I could be delusional. In other words, So there does come a point where it's like, if you care at all about any of these subjects, you have to understand why you trust somebody in the first place.
Right. Right.
Like what is it about the story, the storytelling, the storyteller that you trust over somebody else? And I don't know what I think that threshold is different for different people, but I would just say like, I know it when I see it, when I walk into a room and this type of scenario you're talking about where like everyone is in a suggestible state, they all are there because they know what they want to get out of this or, whatever. Like, the Dungeons and Dragons player from the actual person having an experience a lot of the time. I'm sure I get it wrong a lot of the time too, but I think both are real. In other words.
Right. I mean, it is fascinating. And I want to just say really quickly that UFO Valley Campground, Jody is in chat, and they have a wonderful place that is actually right on the ridge, Skinwalker Ridge. And so you can go up there and go camping. And then it's just beautiful, and you can just see what's going on or what's not going on. But you can definitely, I was up there and they took me on a tour and I loved it. And I definitely am going to come back this summer. So prepare yourself. You've got a few months, but it's just a really fun place. And maybe I'll take the Ouija board just to see what happens. Maybe I can intercept something from Dragon.
I hope I'm not mispronouncing this name, but I see in your chat, Kasun Lee says, you don't call upon evil spirits or Satan using the board, only spirit of light. Yeah, thanks, pal. I know. We didn't call it. It called us. It was like, I'm Satan. You think I'm calling you Satan? Are you insane, man?
Well, I've seen that, unfortunately.
Satan called me. That's why I cried.
And you were 15 when this happened?
Yeah.
Such a formative age for such a traumatic experience. Lord. Yeah, that's it's very exciting. Thank you for sharing that moment, your Ouija board story with me. Yep. Maybe one of these days I'll share mine. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, you got like 45 minutes, so.
Well, moving right along, let's, how about, you tell us about some of your books. Because
you really think people want to hear about my books and not your Ouija board story?
I'm hoping. Yeah, I'm hoping. Yeah.
I don't know. What do you want to know? I wrote them.
Okay.
They're books.
So what is your what is your favorite book?
Oh. They're like children, I can't just pick one.
True.
I don't know. I would say that I'll put it this way. I think the most useful book I've written is Urgency, which is so I jumped the shark at some point, and it wasn't enough to just like self-aggrandize and be an alien abductee. I then had to have like spiritual shenanigans happen. And that book is about sort of what human nature truly is beyond the thing that we call human nature, so that we give ourselves excuses to be jerks. We just keep screwing up and telling ourselves the same therapeutic stories over and over again through art for eons. And we never figure out that, once again, it's like this idea of us having complete amnesia about things, that should be obvious at this point. We can't seem to quite get a grasp on, just how to be humans. So we call it human nature to not understand that. And then we put on a pedestal these things we call ideals, which are like, oh, that's Jesus, that's Buddha, that's, the love and light. That's the thing to try to be like, but you'll never actually get there because you're only human after all. And so this book is kind of about that, about how, there's the human consciousness stream, and then we sort of have divorced ourselves from truth. And so we get it in dribs and drabs through insight and through moments of coming upon great awing beauty and feeling as one with the earth or something. But at least in our culture, we don't have an integrated relationship with nature. We don't have any real sense of oneness-y thing except for what we lie to ourselves about because we like how it feels to think about those things and pretend we have it. And I'm hoping in that book to sort of trap your brain into understanding all of this so thoroughly that it stops projecting you as a seeker of these deep things, meaning, truth, love, God, whatever, so that it shuts you off. Because if there is something that is not a thought construct, you can't get to it with the thought construct. If there is something that is timeless, you can't get there with this character of time called the self, right? So that self has to dissolve. Time has to be no more for timelessness to be the case. And I want you to get there before you physically die. That's all that I ask. And so I try to do a book. I try to write a book that would help you out with that. I don't know if it works. Probably not. But I think it's the purest book that I've written and is about that. And then the other books, at least the nonfiction books, are more about the alien stuff and, sort of mixing the two as I go further in life, because I can't really keep them separate anymore. But yeah, that's sort of what that is. But it's got a sense of humor, but it's not vulgar. And a lot of my stuff is like vulgar humor and cruelty, which I'm also a fan of. So.
All right.
But it's also a straightforward book. I guess that's the other thing. But the last book I wrote was also pretty straightforward, which is Aliens, the First and Final Disclosure. And so the first third of that book, maybe almost half, is like a complete roast of ufology, because I think you have to sort of burn away the false if you're going to get to the true. So, if you're not in tune with the humor, you're going to hate it. You're going to be like, what is this crap? I'm not reading this. But there's depth all along the way. And then by the end, I think is sort of the big reveal. Because I don't think it's enough anymore to just burn the house down with ufology or any of this stuff. You've also got to show, not falsely replace it with anything, but show a possibility. So I want to burn the house down in the beginning of the book, but then by the end of the book say, look, here's a direction to look at this stuff.
Good for you. I'm not there yet. I just want to burn it down. Burn it down. It's okay. No, I definitely, I think that is good. We should replace things with more positive things. So
science has no problem with it.
I'm working through this.
I mean, what do you think about that? What do you think it is the draw for so many people in ufology to want to be validated by science and have scientific minds and speakers applying themselves to this and talking about it, to UFO stuff, but then not ever changing with new information themselves? They want to get people involved whose entire goal is to change with observation or repeatability or whatever, change with new information, to form like a coherent, realistic, at least logically realistic, you know, picture of whatever the particular subject is. Well, if you want to bring them into UFO world, and you yourself still have Greer running around, like nothing can change in the circus, but you want to bring in the serious people to the circus, how does nobody see that as a problem?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge problem, yeah, or bringing Eric Davis or Colm Kelleher or any of these people, into this. These people shouldn't even have a seat at the table. It's ridiculous. And what do you make of why do people spend so much time trying to push, our lawmakers, I mean, people in the government to disclose things when in all actuality they don't have anything to disclose, in my opinion. Like, why are we looking and pushing that narrative again? We're going to, like what Elaine Douglas and her friends did, Operation Right to Know. It's like we're going to demand accountability, and why do we keep needing to go down that path?
I think because it's an easy path to go down where you have an actual bad guy in front of you called a politician or, the CIA or the government or whatever. And I think it caters to, well, it's a lot like the plandemic thing or the anti-Fauci thing, where like your heart's in the right place, right? Like big pharma is bad, but they're not putting nanobots in a vaccine in, you know what I mean? Like they're
Right.
not trying to control you that way. That part is wrong. And that's what ufology caters to, is like your heart's in the right place. You cannot trust your government with everything. You certainly can't trust the military and the Pentagon to tell you the truth. So why are you asking for the truth? And there is a reality to this UFO thing. And they are clandestinely trying to study it in some ways, right? Like that just makes sense that they would. But you are wrong in the narrative of like, therefore, they have alien bodies. Therefore, they know exactly what this is. I don't think they do. I don't think they know anything about this, honestly. So I think that's what it is. It's a mixing up of like the legit feeling of distrust without the education to see what it is that you should actually be distrustful about, or the aspect, because that's how they get away with continuing to do the legit bad conspiracy stuff that they do in the world, In the same way that Big Pharma, I mean, the whole thing with Big Pharma is they're an evil entity that wants to make money off of people being sick, or making money off of just throwing new drugs at a problem that have side effects and who cares, and blah. They want to make money. That's the conspiracy. They want to make money, and they want to be funded by your tax dollars to make money off of you in a healthcare system that should be a universal healthcare system, and they keep it not. That's the conspiracy, not they're creating a virus to wipe most of us out, or what, you know what I mean? Like all this stuff that's like easy, the sci-fi story to attach to and get upset about is the lie. And so you got to look at like who's promoting those lies. And at least in terms of like the pandemic stuff and the QAnon stuff, it is inevitably, if you do the research on the researchers and you follow the threads, folks, it's fascists. It always goes back to like anti-Zionist, fascist weirdos who are getting you to say the thing without you knowing it, getting you to promote this without you knowing it, because it's
Right.
like twice or three times removed until it isn't anymore. And I think you were kind of getting to that maybe in a different way in terms of like saying like getting people to vote for. And I think that's true too. Like at this point, the infiltration of ufology very well, in large part by politics, could be to get you to vote for. It could be that simple. Like, how do we get you to vote for the candidate who's going to do the most harm to you and the least for you? Well, you're really attached to this UFO subject. They want disclosure too. You know what I mean? Like they want to get to the bottom of this too all of a sudden. Yeah, maybe it's that simple, but it's always promoting, it seems to me, and this was shocking when I first saw this, a right-wing agenda, a far right-wing agenda in ufology. I mean, you would think that the people who are claim to want the truth and are the most would be the most open-minded people, but apparently not. And I don't know what that's a product of. I don't know, unless it's just like it's just always been there and I just never noticed it. I don't know.
I think so. I think it's always been there. At least from my looking back at some of the things that I have and some of the work that Jack has done, I think it's always been pretty prevalent. But
Do you
it,
think there's a
it is.
parental relationship too, like going on? Like this whole thing of like we can't trust the military at all until they become a whistleblower saying the exact same thing I want to hear. Then it's like, oh, welcome. It's almost like this, like we're petulant. Ufology is this petulant child who like hates their parents until their parents give them $20 for the weekend, and then it's like, oh, I love you, mom and dad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like this weird thing going on. But we shouldn't, pick a side here. Do you trust David Grush because he's an intelligence officer turned realtor, or do you not trust David Grush? But don't have it both ways. Don't tell me you're not going to trust him until he starts saying the thing that you want to hear, when the thing is actually pretty preposterous and old at this point. And that's whether he's telling the truth or lying. Maybe a bunch of people did tell him this and he has no discernment, in which case I fear for our intelligence agency if he's, the best and the brightest here. Like, he can't win either way. Like, there's sort of a doom in all of this either way, because he's either lying to you or he's not. And if he's not and he's falling for it and he's an intelligence guy, that's a problem.
Seriously. And I mean, I have a really hard time because I know I've heard people, especially when he testified and whatever that clown show was, but it was, oh, well, he's just being duped by, by Knapp and Corbell, who you could see conveniently sitting behind them so they could make sure they were in the camera screen as well. And it's just like, I don't really think that he's that stupid. He might be, but I think that he just got, like the rest of them, saw a great business opportunity and a great way to potentially stir up some trouble. It's like, that whole clan is distrust the government. We're, like I was mentioning earlier with Corbell, it's like we're lighting, the pitchforks and we're going to storm the Pentagon and hold these people accountable. And if you look at the rhetoric, Corbell and co kind of puts out there on social media, it's just the same types of stuff that a QAnon conspiracy nut would be putting out there, and it's dangerous. It's not. This isn't, in my opinion. I think I don't think good things can happen when you're continually stoking people's fear and anger.
And how malicious do you think he is consciously being in this? Like when you call your podcast weaponized and you used language like that, and right, you're trying to stoke people after seeing what happened on January 6th. Is it complete just like make money cynicism of like, oh, we can do that too. We can funnel that mentality and cattle herd them into our thing here and make money off them that way by using their language? Or do you think that it goes beyond that and that he actually does at some point want to be leading a charge of an insurrection of some sort?
Yeah.
Or, or whatever that would be.
I mean, honestly, you look at the people that he's there running with. I mean, you've got people like Joe Rogan, who's, besties with, who's the guy that's in the deep trouble, Alex Jones. All these people, they go way back and they've been promoting some pretty interesting ideas. And I don't think it's an accident that you constantly see Lazar and Corbell and Knapp and Robert Kennedy Jr., on Joe Rogan and things like that. I mean, I think there's a pretty concerted efforts with some of this, and they are making money. There's no doubt about that. But is there something, is there a bigger momentum to this? Is there a bigger cause of, what they're doing? And I have to say, I think that there might be. I think that's something to definitely look into.
So to what end? I mean, what do you think like the end game of that is?
Well, I think politics, I think power, money. I think that, as you mentioned, fascism, I think that there's a definite A lot of, well, people that have a lot of money want to control the narrative. And so I think that could be the case. And I definitely believe that Robert Bigelow has the money, the means, and the inclination to try to foster conspiracy ideas, and to also foster distrust. And he is, as people know that kind of follow him, he's one of the biggest donors in the Republican Party, and definitely he controls the narrative in Nevada politics. So, is that about UFOs, or is that about him making money? And how do you make money by controlling the narrative?
Hmm.
So, those are my thoughts.
But you don't think they're going to like try to get people to storm Area 51 and then step back
Well,
and
that worked out.
pull
So
a
that
Trump,
was.
pull a Trump, be like, I will march with
Did
you, I will
you, do
be
you
with you,
remember that?
bye bye.
Oh, or, yeah, do you remember that? Like when they were down there trying to do that, and it was just like that was so awkward. That was such a big, you
Yeah.
know, it was, yeah, that was embarrassing. I don't know, but I definitely feel, and again, like these are things that I've been researching and looking into for many years. I don't feel that this is like one guy over here doing it to be famous and another guy over here. I mean, I think that there's this is a concerted effort by
Hmm.
people continually promoting the same messaging, decade after decade. And they have money and they have the means to go about promoting and spreading this information, which is special.
What do you think? Do you think that QAnon was sort of a government operation or a something operation, or do you think it was just a couple of clowns from like 8chan or whatever figuring this
I
stuff
don't think it
out?
was a couple of clowns from 8chan. I think it was I think it was I would think it was people like Bigelow. They
Hmm.
could, people that have been mining data. I mean, look how much data Bigelow's mined over the years, and you're looking at people that have a conspiracy bent and people that distrust the government. You've got the first incarnation of Coast to Coast, and then you've got, the same old people going out there late night to America talking about Bigfoot and colloidal silver and talking about all of these things, and the FEMA camps and all of these things, and then little UFOs, and but you can't trust the government, and then John Lear, and all of these things kind of, and then Alex Jones. I mean, you look at Coast to Coast, and how many times has Alex Jones been on Coast to Coast? How many times was Stuart Rhodes, the head of the Oath Keepers, on Coast to Coast? Well, quite a few. And so you've got these people in that political landscape, that are the same people that we're listening to in the UFO community. What's that about? That to me is not. Um, I don't think that's accidental, but just me.
So
So I
then,
think
do you think Project Serpo was like a test run? Because
if
I'm
I
always
was,
trying to link Project Serpo with QAnon. Like, and it might just be like if there really were two just dudes who did it, they saw what happened with Project Serpo and they were like, I think we can do this on our own. I think we can start like a cult with that template of like message board, anonymous source, get a crowd. And then of course COVID happens and everyone stays indoors and now they're all on their computers at once. So it's like a perfect storm. But do you think that there's a connection between the Project Serpo, shenanigans and in QAnon, or is that a happy accident?
you know what, I'll have to look into that. I don't think it very well could be, and I think that again the QAnon stuff, and I mean that all of it is just very interesting to me because it, I of my own personal experiences and what I had to deal with, and what I saw, and the way that this disinformation can really warp a person. I mean, it's like I saw that QAnon um, Oath Keeper kind of thing up close and saw and could kind of trace it back to specific connections. This person is, you've got like Steve Bannon again, Roger Stone. I mean, all these people again are in this little network, promoting all of this. And so I don't know. I think Project
Hmm.
Serpo is, I think all of it could be linked somehow. And perhaps when I'm in my free time, when I'm not watching, YouTube videos on I don't know what, macrame, something, whatever I'm doing on YouTube, maybe I could look into that. It's really fascinating though. And I think, I'm hoping that QAnon is on the way out, but I dare to dream.
Yeah, I mean, just waiting to be replaced. I mean, it's just again the problem is the prevalent mentality of everything is perception. So it doesn't matter what facts; it's how you feel. It's how you feel about something. Facts don't matter, and that is such a prevalent thing and in a way, it's like, well, why wouldn't it be? Because what have facts gotten you? What has listening to experts gotten you? Like, people are poorer, people, inflation is high, all the stuff that we know, like in our lives. Things aren't getting better for the 99%. So, isn't it just easier to turn to like fairyland at that point and, pretend to be in control, to pretend to be the star of your own show and to have some sense of control, even just over like being one of the in crowd who knows what's really going on. Like I think that's like hyper attractive to people here at the end of civilization.
Are
It's
we at
just
the end of
inevitable.
civilization?
What's that?
Are we at the end of civilization, do you think?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think Mother Earth is about to go boop, and then cockroaches come next, or whoever survives picks back up, and the cycle begins again. Whatever happens, happens. I don't know, but yeah, no, I don't think we're going to. I don't think we are to survive in the way that we've been going on these global changes, and I feel like we know that, and so unconsciously, again, it gets to the like instead of doing the ego death thing, we do collective suicide. So yeah, let's keep going with AI until they take us over. Pfft, who cares, right? Yeah, sure, nuclear weapons are back in play again. Who cares, right? In fact, I know we just saw Fukushima happen, but let's, if we really want to help ourselves, let's go nuclear with nuclear energy. It's safe. Like all these things we tell ourselves to like carry on, carry on, carry on. But I really think it's like to control for the fact it's like before a storm when ants swarm. They like you see ants swarming, going crazy, preparing for a storm. I feel like we're doing that, except we're unconsciously doing that. It's like we're fortifying ourselves and barricading ourselves mentally, and because there is no God coming to save us from ourselves, and so we're going to control our own extinction rather than like actually take a breath and figure out what's going on. Figure out because again, like I always go back to the example of the grub or the pupa in the cocoon. Like we're in a cocoon and we're supposed to chew our way out and fly as butterflies. But again, we don't do that. We say that's someone else who does that. That's an ideal. That's not us. And so instead of engaging with that, we put an HD TV on our cocoon and we go on the computer in our cocoon. And you can do that for a good number of years, but eventually you suffocate and die because that's not actually what you're supposed to do. And I feel like, yeah, we're at that point. At least westernized society is at that point. I think indigenous people will, by and large, be fine. They understand that they've been through this before, and we'll be just fine. Well, just fine. Let's put that in quotes. But yes, I think yes is the short answer. What do you think? You think we're much ado about nothing, and we're going to go on, and we have a future?
You know what? I mean, I think obviously we're destroying the planet. I think that's point that we're past the point of no return on that, and we're obviously we're going to continue to destroy the planet because all the people with the money are heading the climate change summit, and people have a vested interest in the oil and things. It's just very fascinating and sad to me. And I think we do. I think people are in general, they like to distract themselves from reality because it's easier. And so if somebody's saying climate change isn't real, that's a lot easier than actually getting off your butt and making changes in your daily life to mitigate some of these things that are taking place in our environment. And I also think, I mean, you have to go up against, you have to be active in your community. You have to, get involved in politics. You have to make change from the ground up. And that's not an easy thing for most people to do because they're lazy. And that's sad. And we're to the point where we have to start taking responsibility for ourselves, for our planet, for all of the people that live on the planet. And we, instead of become more, this is my territory, and you don't matter, your life doesn't matter. I'm going to go in and bomb you off the planet, and it's us against them, and that's a really frightening thing. And no place better can that be really looked at is from, here I am in Utah, where it's like we're all about allegedly taking care of our own and devoting our 10% of our income to making our church a billion-dollar industry. And but we're going to bunker up, hunker down, do our food storage for the apocalypse, and we're not going to take any responsibility for our environment. Look at the Great Salt Lake, look at some of the things that are taking place in Utah. It's really a debacle. And so that's sad, but it is much easier to think the apocalypse is coming, because in a way that gives people an excuse to do nothing. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I would add to, and I agree with all of that, but I would add to it that there is a very much unacknowledged existential crisis, our new ontological shock, our new favorite phrase, right? That has been with us since 2012, which is, that was the end of prophecy. There have been other, people trying to make prophecies of like end times and things since then, but that was the last legit global, like, on this day, something magical will happen and the good people will ascend and the bad people won't, or whatever happens, some magical thing. And it never happened, right? So for all of the billions of people who are psychologically invested from the word go in a sky savior, right? Or some sort of thing that comes and takes us, renders all of our mistakes moot and just gives us a start over or brings us to heaven or whatever. Like, that's over. That door shut in 2012. And I think unconsciously everyone knew it. But when you're invested in the lie, and then it's the attention of the, you call attention to the lie, logic dictates that you abandon the lie, but reality dictates that most people don't. Most people don't abandon the wrong thing. Most people, hunker down and defend it. And the wrong thing here is such a part of you that I think it does make people just anxious and angry and these bad emotions that are easy to tap into and manipulate and monetize and exploit and all the stuff that we've been seeing. And I think that ufology plays into that by giving another, a disclosure, right? Like, this is the disclosure date. That's the big end times revelation. That's the big, everyone who is in the know goes to heaven. You know what I mean? Like, and you don't have to define what that is, what happens the day after disclosure. You don't have to define that. You don't have to define what heaven is. You don't have to define any of it. It's all, this is the beauty of QAnon. We're seeing it in play here. Like, whatever you imagine is the ending. And you're the star, and you're a good person, and you're happy. And these are the things that matter to you most. And you want that to happen. And you've been told that that's going to happen. You've been told if you just believe in your Jesus or your whatever enough, that's going to happen. And it hasn't. So, I think like when we work unconsciously through these Bibles and stories of other people, when we're on other people's programs, running other people's programs in the back of our heads, as a culture, as a society, and personally, I think we act unconsciously and we seek these same things out in other ways. And I think like disclosure is another form of that. And in other words, like looking for Armageddon as a way of like throwing your hands up and being like, well, wasn't me, I don't care. I'm just going to keep being selfish because, oh, well, what can I do? I think that is true. but I also think there is this other heavy component to it of like sadness that gets transmogrified into anger and all that stuff. But it's like, I think the base of it is like the sadness of Jesus never came, you know? Like, somehow the Mayan calendar becomes Jesus is coming, right? But whatever that is, like the earth never stopped treating me wrong, you know, like, or whatever. Like, the bad guys are still running things. And I was told there'd be a happy ending here. And so I want to make that happy ending come true, whether it exists or not. So I'm going to petition the government for some fake thing that I'm never going to acknowledge as fake, because it's not about what the thing is. It's not about the fact of what there is to disclose. It's about that I want disclosure. I want the happy ending, you know? Like, I think it's the same thing with everything. And so it is with like the climate change at large, which is like, you know, I want to make this apocalypse happen. I want to control it. And I want to, whatever the vision is for the ending of that, is you doing something good, right? Or being taken care of by sky parents or something. Or Earth parent, Mother Earth parent, whatever it is. God, we just want to be taken care of. This is all it is. If we could just acknowledge that. We just are like babies in the womb still. We just want to be nursed. Well, I guess you wouldn't be in the womb if you wanted to be nursed, but you know what I mean.
That could be next National
That
Enquirer.
could be awkward.
Baby in the womb being nursed. Yeah, it is interesting. And I still like am absolutely blown away that people deny climate change. Like, it's just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it boggles the mind that the people who are upset at, again, at politicians in government and don't believe them, but they believe the people who tell them whatever it is that they want to hear, you know? Like, I don't trust politicians. I don't trust either side. Oh, well, what do you think about climate change? Yeah, that isn't real. Well, why isn't that real? Because you were told that wasn't real by a politician paid by an oil company.
Right.
To not believe it so that the oil company could continue to exist and make money off you. But you don't want to hear that part. You just want to hear the part where it's not real because you're afraid of dying or you're afraid to take responsibility for your part in it.
Well,
You
it
know?
won't be in our lifetime, so we don't need to worry about it. Who cares about our kids or our grandkids? You know, whatever.
Well, except
It'll
that
be-
I think now it is here, right? Like, I think it is in our lifetime at this point.
Absolutely. But, you know, I mean, I think people have that idea that they're not,
Yeah.
you know, it's not in their face until it is in their face, and their
And
home
so this
is
gets
on
to
fire. And
the bigger question of like, does anyone care anymore about meaning? Or does everyone just feel meaningless? And so it's okay to screw over even your own children and grandchildren if you think like, that's not going to be me, that's the future. So you don't care about those people? Like, what do you care about other than your own immediate satisfaction in life?
I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where a lot of people are, unfortunately.
But they won't admit that. They won't say that. They would be offended by that. They'd be like, how dare you? How dare you say that about me? You don't know me. It's like, dude, I am you. Of course I know you. I've been through what, you know what I mean? Like, we all share the same stuff. That you decide to put up a wall and not examine is your choice. But for those of us who do, we know you. It's not a big mystery. You know, like, it just, I don't know. Let's just put it this way. The history of this country, at least, if not this world, is to have this false sense of individuality and to look at the people who are here that we just slaughtered, who understand family and understand interconnecting nature and all beings as relatives. Those people were savages, and
Right.
we're the good guys.
Right.
I just want, you know, like, take a moment with that. Like, that's the actual history of this nation. What else could come out of
And it continues to this day.
this? Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah, and that's another thing, just to, you know, go back around to the whole Skinwalker thing. I mean, just to hear Knapp and Bigelow and you know, that whole crew actually have the gall to create a complete load of nonsense based on uh, Navajo, Dene, lore when it's not even it's the Ute tribe. It has nothing to do. I mean, it's just this white man taking over a narrative and trying to fool people, and I don't know. The whole thing is very fascinating to me, but I definitely feel like we have a responsibility to do what we can to hold our elected officials accountable for what's going on in our environment, and we need to try to make the world a better place. And I don't know. But I'm a dreamer, Don Quixote. That's
Well, now take a look at this entire conversation that we've just had, and you think about all the points that we've made and all this sort of circulating we've done with this and going back and forth, and ask yourself the one question that all of ufology is ignoring. If you're an alien, do you land? Like, how are we the ones that are ready for this? Again, how are we prepared? We have no handle on ourselves. How are we ready for an enigmatic other that is allegedly advanced in some way, at least in our theory? But we block that part out because let's face it, folks, as far as the interested public goes, it's all a work of fiction. It's Dungeons and Dragons. You don't want to call it that because it's such a central focus of your life, and who wants to wake up and be like, oh, I've been just doing fantasy this whole time? But you have. And you know who that's offensive to? Me, because I'm a freaking experiencer. So, figure it out, folks.
yeah, what
Good
he
night,
said.
everybody.
Bum. No, no, that's awesome. Thank you. This has been a really fun and very interesting conversation. I yeah, we could go down so many roads, and hopefully you'll be back and we can do that. But I do really enjoy watching your videos.
Thank you.
I've been just listening to everything that you have to say. You make me laugh, and that is a very good good quality these days. And you make me think, and I like the way that you do hold people. It's like there are people that need to be held accountable in this subject. And I know that everybody that is here and the people that are listening and people that are in chat actually want the best for other human beings and want the best for maybe the integrity of looking at something that is, unknown. And so I appreciate you, and I appreciate the people that support the show and that listen and make such great comments in chat. So I'm glad that I took my nice little vacation, guys. I had a wonderful time, and I'm rested and rejuvenated. And I've been doing some work behind the scenes, as you probably know. Even though I say I'm resting, I'm really not. I'm digging up dirt, but that's okay. So I look forward to getting more of that out there. And I'm looking at all the nice comments. Great conversation. Thanks, Tracy. It's nice to see you, and Simon and Jasmine and all of you. Thank you very, very much. So when are you going to release your next show? Then are you waiting until after the holidays, or?
No, I'll probably have another one Thursday. He's so
Okay.
Vaeni. Dreamland, I'm on hiatus until at least January, but like I said, I have people coming to town, so I don't know. And I also do another thing, hour in doing radio, but I do that seasonally, so I can put that down for a while. I don't know when I'm going to pick that back up. So, but he's so Vaeni on YouTube.
I love the
Thursdays.
opening to that. That is fantastic. And I just have to ask you, because Michael asked a million years ago tonight on the show what you thought it was like working with Whitley, and I just need to ask you that. So,
we don't really work together. I mean, Whitley just sort of says, don't turn this into a complete comedy. Don't talk about Trump or people will come after you, and don't swear too much. Like, these are the parameters, and then go. And he'll offer things like if booking guests or thing, but I try to do that myself. So it's pretty, in that sense, it's pretty smooth sailing, I think. Yeah.
cool. Thank you. Thanks for answering that, and thank you for being here. It was really fun
Thank you.
talking to you. Have a happy holiday.
You too.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Goodbye. And I want to thank all of you guys for being here and sticking with me and supporting the show. And I want to thank Peter again for doing such great work on social media. If each of you could click like, subscribe, and share, that would be wonderful. You can go to the Patreon page to support the show, and you can go to expandingfrontiersresearch.com to support the work that we're doing. As you can guess, Jack and I have been digging into a lot of things. There are a lot of FOIA requests that have been coming in. We've got the information on lots of studies that we're looking into, and it's so much fun. I want to just thank Jack for doing a wonderful show with Vanessa. She was in chat earlier, and they did that show on domestic violence. As all of you who follow me know, I have been dealing with some domestic violence issues over the years, and also dealing with a very slow legal process, the Utah National Guard, and other things. So I'm still doing that. I guess the trials are going to be taking place in January. They'll start. So I will keep you posted. But I want to thank Jack and Vanessa for doing such a thoughtful show on a very important issue. So thanks, all of you guys. I love you. And I will catch you next week. I'm not going to tell you who's going to be on the show because I really don't know. That's the way I roll. All right, guys, peace out. Good night. Take care. Be safe. And I will catch you next week.